Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University.
Hello and welcome, my dear student, to Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad, in Chaitanya Studio of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University, Ahmedabad. As we learn in this subject called Management Accounting, Unit number 1, that is Budget and Budgetary Control. With that discussion, let us continue our discussion with the advantages of budgetary control. Let's start our discussion with the budgetary control's advantage, that budgetary control is an important instrument of a control with the management, and thereby they can visualize future advertises and make provisions to face them successfully. It helps, my dear friends, them to evaluate the working of a different departments and performance of employees as well. The main advantage of the budgetary control is summarized as like planning, coordinating. The first point is, my dear friend, planning. Budget is a short-term plan of a future activity, as it gives an opportunity to make estimates for the future forces and visualize the possible contingency, and it enhances the efficiency of our management. So my dear friend, planning is the one of the best advantage of budgetary control. Next is coordination. As a comprehensive master budget is prepared on the basis of the departmental budgets, it ensures the coordination and make all the departments to cooperate in attaining the target fixed by the budget. So ultimately, the coordination between the different departments is also important in nature, and it's one of the best advantage of budgetary control. Next is, my dear friend, control. The budget targets set a standard against which actual performance is evaluated. Thereby, it reveals the degree of success achieved in the direction of targets. If necessary, corrective measures can be devised. Thus, it makes it possible to exercise the control over each aspects of the operations and also over the activities of each officials. Then, my dear friend, decentralization. Budget facilitate the decentralization of business activity and distribution of responsibility amongst the officials. The business unit gets divided into the different departments, and each of this department shoulders the responsibility to prepare and implement the budget of its own, and for this purpose authority and the power to do so are delegated to the head of the department. So the decentralization point is also advantage, because each department has own responsibility to prepare budget and implement that budget. Then, my dear friend, efficiency. Before budget is prepared, all factors affecting to the business operations are studied in detail, and consequently the scope conflict it reduces, and that of the mutual cooperation increased. Next is, my dear friend, cooperation. As executives and heads of the department have met often to discuss the provisions of budget, they can understand one another's problem, and consequently the scope of conflicts is reduced, and that of the mutual cooperation is increased in a nature. Then, my dear friends, efficient communication. It ensures the effective communication to give in a writing the goal, targets, programs, responsibility of the budget concern is an integral part of the implementation of the budget program. And this removes the possibilities of doubts and misunderstanding as to the kind of work to be done and the manner in which it is to be done and the time period within which it is to be accomplished. As a result, the healthy atmosphere of the cardinal relation is created in the business unit. So ultimately, my dear friends, the efficient communication between the two departments is also the good, and it implement in a good nature. Next is, my dear friend, efficient use of resources. The budget ensures optimum utilization of available resources. Efforts of all officials and the employees are directed towards the same goal. And hence, the physical and the human resources can be utilized to the fullest extent and the aim of maximum profits can be achieved. Next is, my dear friend, higher moral and productivity. When we discuss all these other advantages, at that point of time, my dear friends, we are going to the higher moral and productivity. Since the supervisor and employees are also the called upon to take a part in framing the business budgets, and their moral is a strength. A harmony is established between the goal of the enterprises and those of the individual employees. And the employees are inspired to put their heart in the implementation of budget program. And consequently, the productivity of the enterprise to get a boost. So the higher moral and productivity is important in a nature, and it's the biggest advantage of budgetary control. After discuss the budgetary control's advantage, let's move to the limitations of the budgetary control. The advantage of budgetary control enumerated above are no doubt the impressive in nature. There is therefore a possibility that its limitation may be ignored by the management. Wherever the budgetary control has failed to yield positive result, it is mainly due to the two reasons. One is the lack of interest and therefore apathy of the management towards effective implementation of budgetary control. And the second is to neglect of some serious limitations of the budgetary control. And there are, my dear friend, the first point is success depends on the estimates. Very important limitation. The budget plan is based on the estimates, and the success of budget program depends on the accuracy of estimate pertaining to the different operations of the enterprise. And hence, budget figures must be arrived at after careful consideration of all relevant factors and fact. It is desirable to use recently developed statistical method to bring in budget estimates as much accuracy as possible. The next point is, my dear friend, it's a rigidity in nature. It is necessary to adopt a budget program to changing the conditions in and out of the enterprise, or we can say the business unit. The different techniques should be used to prepare budget programs and also to change them wherever necessary. In the initial period, not much can be expected from the budget program, as a satisfactory budget program can be evolved after a long period of hard work only. So, this is also we treated as a rigidity in nature. Then, collective efforts. Execution of budget program is not an easy task. It requires the collective efforts of all the executives simultaneously. Each one of them has to work sincerely to achieve the targets, or we can say the goal assigned to him. Each executive must realize that if fails to achieve the target concerning the operation of his department, it will have the adverse effect on the operation of other departments. So collective efforts is one of the biggest limitation in budgetary control. Next is budget is only a tool. Budget can never be a substitute of management and administration of a particular business unit or enterprise. Budget is merely an instrument in which, or we can say in the hand of the management. The budget manual of a well-known company, it is rightly remarked that budget is to be treated not as our master but as a servant. It is one of the best tool to develop the activities of the whole business unit as well as those of each individuals within it, yet must not be taken as a perfect and complete instrument. So, my dear friends, we can say that the budget is only a tool. Then, next point is expansive. The preparation of budget program and implementation thereof are the highly expensive affairs. The small firms cannot afford to use budgeting techniques. Therefore, moreover, if the budget programs are not devised carefully, they are likely to harm the interest of the business. So, this is also an expansive in nature. Next is success in a long run only. The manager who expect the immediate gains from the budget programs are bound to be disappointed and frustrated. The budget procedure and the techniques can be developed only after a long period of experience and they yield fruits in long term. Then disappointment caused by the high targets. Budget target must not be high and over ambitious. If they are unrealistic and impracticable, employees fail to achieve them and they are frustrated and demoralized, and all this reduces the efficiency of business and ultimately your profit in a reducing level. Then defective evaluation. It is essential to monitor continuously how far budget targets have been achieved. If the evaluation system is defective, the inefficiency of the personnel will not be detected and the budgetary control will not serve any useful purpose. So ultimately this is also and the limitations. Next point is, my dear friend, to classification of the budget. The classification of the budget mainly in three heads. The first head is on the basis of time. Second is on the basis of flexibility. Third is on the basis of functions. While we are talking about on the basis of time, it is mainly divided into the two parts, that is long term and short term. Then on the basis of flexibility, then it's a fixed and flexible budget. Then we divided into the basis of the different functions. Then first point is sales budget, second is production cost budget. While we defining this particular production cost budget, it further divided into the four parts, that is material budget, direct labor budget, factory overhead budget and service department budget. Then my dear friends, administrative cost budget, sales and distribution cost budget, research and development budget, capital budget, cash budget, that is known as a financial budget, and the master budget. So these are the classification of the budgets, my dear friends. Let us move to the discussion of the classification according to the time, in that short-term budget and long-term budget. The short-term budgets are generally prepared for a 1 year or less than 12 months. And that period is a short-term budget, is prepared for the time of business where the long-term forecasting is difficult. Quarterly and the half-yearly budgets are mainly prepared in this short-term budget. Then long-term budget. The period of budget for a 5 year to 10 years, or we can say the more than 12 months or more than a year, that long-term budgets are prepared for the capital expenditure, research and development, and the long-term financial planning. Next is classification according to the flexibility, in that fixed budget and flexible budget. According to the ICMA, a budget which is designed to remain unchanged irrespective of the level of activity actually attained, that is called as a fixed budget. For example, where the sales cost and expenditure can be forecast with the accuracy, then it's measurably prepared under the fixed budget. Then flexible budget, where the forecast of sales, revenue and the expenditure are difficult, where the demand is uncertain and unpredictable. At that point of time, my dear friends, we have to prepare flexible budget. This particular flexible budget you have to contain in the block 4 unit number 2, so you can evaluate this flexible budget particularly in detail in that unit. Next, classification according to the function. In that, my dear friend, first is a sales budget. This is the most important budget, or I can say that this is the base of that functional budget, as it most difficult to forecast. And this forecast is based on the nature of product, method of distribution, size of a business, etc. Normally, as given the different procedure are used to arrive to define it, or to we can say the definite the forecast of sales value and the volume. First is that the personal opinion of sales manager and the salesman and the other who are directly or indirectly connected with the sales activity. Then final estimates of future sales can be arrived at on the basis of personal opinion of a salesman and the sales manager. Then the area-wise sales estimation. Sales manager take responsibility to shape the final sales budget. Then the prepare of the sales budget is 1 year, but if the planning is for the long-term sales, may also frame to the next 5 or 10 years sales budget. Next is production budget. The production manager prepares this budget to forecast output of production. The object of the budget is to decide the quantity of production and cost of production. This budget is prepared to maintain a minimum stock of finished goods. It is possible to ascertain the cost per unit as well as profitability of each product. And before preparing production budget, the following budgets are prepared to find out the cost of production. My dear friend, cost of production includes material, labors, and overheads. They're variable and fixed overheads. And therefore, separate budgets are prepared like material budget, labor budget, overhead budget, and service departmental budget. Third point is, my dear friend, that administration, or we can say the administrative or administration overhead budget. This budget covers the expenditure of administrative office and management salary. It is ready with the help of past involvement and anticipated changes in future. Most of administrative cost is fixed and constant. Therefore, this budget can be framed with less difficulties. Next point is, my dear friend, that is selling and distribution overhead budget. This budget's related to offering and convenience of the items for the budget period and is based on the sales budget. And that's why, my dear friend, I told you in a sales budget discussion that this is the base of that budget. And it is for the most part arranged territory shrewd by the sales supervisor of each region. And the selling and distribution overheads are separated into the settled, variable, and semi-variable, and evaluated is taken on the basis of past records. Next is, my dear friend, that is research and development budget. If the company want to survive in a competitive market and want benefits of monopoly, the research and development activities go on continuously. And the company should frame separate budget related to your research and development activities. This is one of the most important activity, my dear friends, in a in a market evaluation, that the most important and significant. Why? Because you have to survive in the market, and competition will go on by the time by time. So you have to prepare the research and development budget in that manner which can easily executed in a nature. Then, my dear friend, capital budget. When the company wants to purchase capital fixed assets like building, machinery, equipment, the company needs capital budget, because the capital expenditure can be recovered only in the long run, and they need careful planning over there. Then, cash budget. This budget, that is cash budget, represent the amount of cash receipt and cash payment. The accountant make it monthly, weekly basis to ensure the sufficient cash requirement in a business. So cash budget is ultimately represent what are that your cash receipt and cash payment. Then last budget is, my dear friend, that is master budget. The master budget is summary of all functional budget that we discussed above, that is all 7 other functional budgets, showing the overall position of the budget and it is also known as a summary budget of finalized profit plan, because ultimate goal of the business is to make profit. So ultimately it's called as a summary budget, and in appropriate manner we can say that it is a master budget. So my dear friend, in this particular video we learn advantages, limitations of budgetary control, then the classification of budgets. After watching this video, you have to, my dear friends, evaluate yourself. Evaluate yourself with these three aspects. First is you have to write a long questions. Second is short questions, and you have to solve the multiple choice question. So let's move to the first aspect of our journey of this particular unit. The first long question is that describe the advantage of budgetary control, and second is describe the limitations of budgetary control. Then you have to write all these advantages and disadvantages of the budgetary control in proper manner. Next is short question. In that define the flexible budget, then define sales budget, but with extra I will tell you define master budget also. So your third question is, my dear friend, define master budget. Now next is multiple choice question. First question is, which of the following limitations of budgetary control is not true? Now for this, solving this particular multiple choice question, you have to read all the limitations. First, it is expensive. Yes sir, it is expensive. Then success in a long run only. Yes, absolutely right, in a long run only. Then success is not depend on estimate. No, success is depend on estimate. This is the biggest limitation of budgetary control. So answer is success is not depends on estimates, option number C. Then fourth is defective evaluation. It's also the true. Next question is, the main advantage of the budgetary control may be summarized as under. That is, success depends on estimate. No, this is the limitation. Rigidity, yes, this is also the limitations. Then collective efforts, this is also limitation. Then planning, coordination and control. Yes, the right option is D. That is, planning, coordination and control are the advantage of the budgetary controls. So my dear friends, in this subject, or we can say that in this particular unit, the budget and budgetary control, you will learn what is budget, what is budgetary control, how the budget are prepared and how it is useful for the particular business enterprise or business unit. Then you define the advantage and limitations of the budgetary control. Then the classification of budget, that each and every classification in a detailed manner. So after that, my humble request to all students that kindly prepare your daily budget. Now in your mind, sir, what is daily budget? My dear friends, daily budget is just like that if your parents give you a pocket money for the particular month, then how you utilize that particular money, that is pocket money, for a whole period. Kindly utilize it and kindly prepare in that manner so you can understand the budget in a practical way. Lastly, if you want to refer further, then you can refer this particular book, that Management Accounting by S. Chand. After discussion this particular point, and we discussed this unit in a very efficient manner, If you want to refer more on this subject, then you may refer the book called Management Accounting by S. Chand. And after evaluate this particular aspects, you may refer it. And I must advise you to kindly refer it. So hope you learn well in this particular unit, my dear friends. Hope you enjoy this study. Thank you very much.
स्वाध्यायः परमम्